Hello. I've got an idea. 3D printing a very large catamaran boat that is made of very high strength, toughened safety glass, infused with a special type of paint, and it has a titanium oxide which makes it slip dry, so you can get it very dirty and it will just run off. Infused within the glass surface is a superconductor, so the whole boat doesn't require any wiring whatsoever. Now, you might think this is a bit pie in the sky or crazy, but NASA are actually looking into doing things like this. Now, as a result, you could effectively have a 3D printed boat with no screws, no bolts, no rudder, no propeller, no water maker, no wires, no radar, no batteries, no rope, no anti-foul, no fuse panel, no chain plates, no seacocks, no maintenance, no halyards, and no mould, dirt or anything within the boat, and no fuel tanks. And the other thing, you don't need any crew either. Like, the reason I mention all these no-nos is because if you take this engine that is currently being used by NASA to develop its deep range spacecraft, which is basically a hydrogen powered plasma drive. Now, it might sound, oh my god, he's putting a rocket engine in a what this basically is it's a donut core that runs a super fast plasma spark of hydrogen around a superconductor that runs through the middle, and when it rotates it creates very, very high voltage. But because the boat is infused as a glass shell, it's infused with solar panels the whole boat is one big solar panel. It also creates power, so you don't need batteries. So the boat itself can run quite happily 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without any power, shore power or anything, and have probably upwards of 20,000 amp hours, at any one time, running through very, very high powered condenser units which slowly can release the energy. Now, one of the spin-offs of running a very, very high powered spinning unit like this is it has a sort of a gravitational field that is opposite, if spun the right way, to gravity. So you can have a boat that is like a gyroscope that's trying to force against itself, and it can be gyro stabilized in 4 planes. So you can have 2 at the front, 2 at the back, steer the boat into a gravity wave, and it will literally push the boat along. That's part of the idea. There's a lot more to it, but the other thing is, like, I've noticed that people in the American area have to go through a lot of bridges and things like that, and if you want to go on these canals and things like that, you've got to have no mast, or have a wait for days, a bridge to be lifted. A simple idea to have a telescopic mast that folds away underneath the front deck of this catamaran which I've got in mind, which is a C95 Blue Coast catamaran. It's about 100 feet long, and if the telescopic mast was to be self-steering and self-folding away, it would literally allow you to go through under any bridge. You wouldn't need water makers, because one of the spin-offs of creating this machine effectively is that you can literally produce water from the air that is, and also you get oxygen as well. So There's no need for a water maker because that is basically taking seawater and compressing it. So up to about 800 bar or something like that. This doesn't need that. So you can have very high speed water production. All the toilet waste on board is turned into hydroponic fertilizer, but very high speed fertilizer, which is using macrobiotic processes used in the industrial waste treatment. My idea is, instead of flushing it overboard like everybody else or having it pumped out, is produce macrobiotic waste that is in a sort of a self-degrading bag, that you could effectively take this bag, put a seed in it, and when you go ashore, you plant the bag and out pops a tree. So your waste is actually producing trees which would be good for the environment, so you're producing oxygen. As far as the no crew side of things are concerned, this particular boat, it requires at least 4 crew if done the normal way: a captain, a cook, an engineer and a deckhand. Well, part of the idea behind this thinking is, if you was to get a standard person in a kitchen producing meals, they would have to cook, provision, things like that. And I've seen on the internet nowadays that there are robot machines that can prepare food in the styles of particular chefs. So you could have a programmed chef, say Gordon Ramsay, or I don't know, someone from some famous restaurant, programming a bunch of meals, and you could literally have programmed food that would be delicious, and you could effectively do away with a cook. Now, one of the things is, because this doesn't require 2 great big 175 horsepower diesel engines, it's running off of a plasma spark. This engine is extremely small, so you don't need all the space for a standard engine room as you would do normally. So the trick of this is to convert those rooms that would normally be used as engine rooms into hydroponic growing rooms for food. So you could literally grow your own food in hydroponic tubes that are grown under a specific wavelength of light, and your food literally could be knocked out, so you wouldn't be dependent on fuel or food. Effectively, you'd have to stop by for something occasionally, your bar of chocolate or something. This whole boat is run from a centralized supercomputer, effectively, which would be quantum powered. The computer would be able to talk, it's self-aware, runs its own form of Windows. There's no software, it's all built into the hardware, so you don't get any sort of blue screens of death and things like that. The whole system would be run on a bi-directional field, so that you can run a very, very defined coded signal through the boat by not having any wires whatsoever. You can have the whole boat effectively, like say you've got your power source, that then picks up the signal from the computer, it then sends a signal to a light bulb, turns on the light switch under a very specific power, and it will only turn that switch on and nothing else. So you've literally got everything is literally run from a bi-directional computer. The other thing is, because the computer or the whole boat itself would be 3D printed, cabinets, walls, you can run the actual interior as hollow cabinets that are hermetically sealed to keep things like food fresh and things like that. You can have ornate detailing on all of the equipment, doors, everything, because you wouldn't be restricted to just putting in a panel. So you could literally have an amazing looking boat inside and out. because the whole unit is, I've noticed that from certain air conditioning units, they end up needing maintenance, which is, in my book, a rude word. So the heart of the matter is to produce a boat that is almost maintenance free. So the air conditioning units within the boat would have to be self-cleaning, and they run pumped oxygen around the boat, which you could literally self-produce from its own air source. You know, that would be also very useful. Now the sails and things like that are made of high stress glass fibres that are printed and made to measure for the tolerance of the boat, because you can get sails that are literally perfectly made for a specific boat, and these would be self-furling hydraulic tensioning systems that don't require reefing, because the boat itself can self-tension and change sails accordingly as to the weather. So I think that's quite important, because I see a lot of boats on YouTube and things like that. They're going out and about, and they've got their systems are all set up to fail, basically. So it's very important that sails don't rip or tear, or hydraulic systems are simplified to such a degree that they produce, they work like a steam engine did in the beginning of the century, where you had to produce a pump that produced water out of a coal mine sort of thing, and it would work every single time, every day, without fail. I think it would be quite important to have all the glazing polarised, and it also can be tinted and darkened to suit by voice. So you can just say to computer, make the glasses or the glass dark, and it will do so, or polarised, for weather purposes. As far as the power is concerned, everything would be coded, so you could literally power the exterior of the boat with a very minute temperature or amount of electricity that would stop barnacles growing on the boat and things like that. But you could touch the boat and not even get a shock from it. It would just deter sort of creepy crawly animals from living on your boat. As far as having a drip dry titanium oxide impregnated surface, you would be able to have the boat itself would be almost self-cleaning, but you would get things on the deck and you would have to wash it off, but occasionally. Now I'm getting a bit pie in the sky here, but if you've ever seen Stargate Atlantis or whatever it's called, they've got these little balls, and they're like Kino balls, and they're a camera system. No lens, but they're just a sensor that senses everything and film everything, and they're gyro stabilised. I would love one of those. If you ever make one, send one my way. It would do away with the camera market completely. Likewise, having a radar system runs off of a different principle than the ones that we've got right now. I envisage, right now, if you've got a mobile phone, it runs 3G or 4G or 5G or whatever. Now, why they can't just invent an internet system that runs off 20 or 30G or whatever it comes out in the end, they know what it's going to be, and they just make it a little bit better each year. Why don't they just go right to the end and make it, what it should be? Now, that would give you effectively free Wi-Fi anywhere in the world, and it would bounce off the hemisphere and things like that, so you would be able to pick up the internet everywhere. Now the same principle is involved with a radar system. You can bounce this signal off of the surface of the sea like pond skater on water, even in rough weather. It would allow you to be able to not only see in high resolution detail everything below the surface of the sea, but everything above, right down to droplets of rain, fishing nets in the water. Now, because the computer itself is literally self-aware of what's going on around it. You can get the boat to drive itself. You can get the whole boat to understand what's going on around it. Like if there's a fishing net, it can change course. If there's a bad spout of weather, it can change course, and so on. A lot of these systems actually do exist right now. So whether it be companies like Rolls-Royce or NASA, or there are radar companies that are developing these sort of intelligent type systems that if they were incorporated into a boat, you would see the benefits, because I know most yachts and things, they tend to last quite a long time, but I've noticed that a lot of people who do these maintenance videos on boats spend endless hours cleaning out bilge tanks, resurfacing the hull, you know, and it takes a long time. Majority of anchors, some are good, some aren't. The standard makes and whatever. I've noticed that if you buy a chain, eventually it corrodes, then you have to buy another one. Why not buy or get a material that is non-corrosive to seawater, such as glass, making a rope out of very high tension glass that can be folded away or rolled up, and you can also send through the signal of the rope, you can send a powered signal to a self-folding anchor. If the anchor was to get stuck, flick a switch and the anchor would literally fold up on itself. It would, you could recover it in that way. You know, there's multiple different designs that could be taken care of if an anchor was self-folding. I think that's quite a clever idea. This boat which I've got in mind, if you bought it off the shelf, it would cost 5 million quid, right? Which is no relatively large figure, which everybody, unless you're super rich, most people don't have. But if you 3D print the boat, it can come in, based on raw materials alone, come in under about £20,000. You know, because you're talking about the materials of making glass, which is basically sand. You've got superconductors, which sand is, I don't know, 40 or 80 tons of sand, £5,000. Semiconductor or superconductor material, 7,000, plus any other bits and pieces, 8,000. So if the boat itself, if you were to go out and buy the £5 million boat, it would cost about 5 million quid and it would weigh about 80 tons. If you were 3D printing it, you would save a lot of weight because there's no wiring, no engines, no this, that or the other. So you could bring the weight down to about 20 tons. If that effectively increased the boat speed to most boats on the sea, they go 8 to 15 knots. Well, why not go 40 knots? You know, set that as a benchmark. And if it was powered, 80 knots, because like it's a matter of having if you put the design into a piece of kit in the first place, obviously you're going to get the results out of it. So my way of thinking on the subject is design all the faults out of a boat as best as you can, and design all the innovative ideas into a boat which would make it highly efficient, incredible as it may seem. Because the boat itself can have its own 3D printer built into, I don't know, the kitchen or something. If something goes wrong, you can just literally 3D print a new part of the boat. I like the idea of being able to recover anything from the boat with ease. I don't want to spend, I see people are on boats and they have to unscrew 500 screws and a ceiling panel and pull all the wiring out, and then just to get a bilge tank out or something, and it's glued in and whatever. My idea is a lot simpler. All kit, regardless of what it is, you can literally go up to it and touch it and say to the computer, release the spring locking mechanism on this bit of kit, like a cabinet or something, and a hydraulic spring release is released, and as a result you can literally pull the cabinet out completely, and you can replace it with a brand new 3D printed item that's completely different if you want. So you can have the cabinet literally attach itself in some sort of sprung loaded hydraulic material that literally can be pulled in and out very easily, and that applies to everything, like right down to the windlass, the steering wheel on the boat, everything. If something does go wrong, like say a sail was to tear, you can literally 3D print a brand new sail or part of a sail and then weld it literally into the existing sail without sewing. Don't want to spend hours sewing. I think it's important to have a lot of safety features on the boat, like if you were to fall overboard, the boat would literally know where you are at any one time. It would turn around, pick you up and plonk you on the rear sail swim platform and get you out of the water and things like that, you know, without you doing anything. It would do it for you, just in case. Because if you were sailing single-handed and you got knocked out and you went overboard, you got your life vest on and that kept you upright, but then the boat would literally be able to bring you out of harm's way. And it could also take you to a harbour of safety, park the boat and put out distress call and things like that. I think it would be important to have all those features, as well as an onboard ship security system. Boat is as strong and as hard as I envisage it to be. You could literally run an oil tanker into this boat and it wouldn't even have a chip on it, which would be brilliant because it would have a legacy factor in that the boat itself, if it was very well built, would last a long time. Like I see these incredible people on YouTube that buy boats, like turn of the century boats like Samson Boat Company, Tally Ho, and he's repairing a boat from 1909 or whenever it was, and it's all made of wood, but it's lasted this amount of time, and you see incredible details on some of these boats that people put their time, blood, sweat and tears into, and it's incredible to see people doing their refit, like the guy from Denmark doing Athena's refit. Every hole perfectly drilled out, glued, plastered over with more resin and more rubbed down and everything. As much as I really love watching those type programs, thought of sitting in a boatyard for 2 years. I don't have, well, I can design a boat, even though I'm an industrial architect by trade, but I'm not a boat designer. I've never designed a boat, but I could literally use a package and design it to the detail that and specification that I think would be beyond the norm, you know, and I think it's important to have standards in that sense. When it comes to building, I would never have the abilities to sit there and do some of the things I see some of the boat builders on YouTube. They're incredible. Like they sit there meticulously rubbing the boat down with sandpaper and grit and cleaning out bilge pumps and electrical signals, and they're getting everything, you know, like they know it all and they do it all, and people going off and doing their bit. I think, me personally, I would like to be the passenger on the boat who doesn't have to do anything and gets fed and goes to hot places and sits in the sun. And I don't want to be the person who sits in the bottom of a hot, sweaty bilge tank, cleaning muck out and resurfacing the inside of the boat with nails and things. As much fun as it is to watch, I don't think I would be that kind of person to be able to do that, you know. I'd have to get... The other thing is, I don't want to spend $1,000 on everything that needs repairs, because from what I've seen on YouTube is that everything on a boat costs $1,000 to repair, regardless of what it is, you know. Like you've got to replace a sail, $1,000, if not more. You've got to replace a radio, $1,000. You've got to replace the radar, $1,000. Wiring, $1,000. Engine parts, $1,000. So don't want to do all that. I want a boat that literally you get on board, it provides you with an interesting environment to live in while you go off around the world. It looks after you and it will take you places and show you things, and you can experience part of the world that you would never normally see unless you're on a boat. Bucket list, which is something that I put a bit of thought into it. Obviously it would put all these thoughts and ideas into practice to make a boat of in a particular way. It would be achievable. Me personally, on my own, in this world of millions of boats, it'd probably be never ever achievable, because my own bucket list and my own idea of what perfection could be, you know. And it would be lovely to have a boat that would feed you and look after you and take you everywhere without the need for fossil fuels, and it would just be a strong, healthy boat. Which if anybody ever builds this boat and decides, hey, I gave you the idea, can you please give me one, because I'd love to have this boat in my head. It's a beautiful looking boat, the Blue Coast C95, but with my added improvements, which who knows, one day they might exist. So I'll leave you with that.